Welcome to Fan-Fueled Fiction. I've got a great video for you today, something I mentioned in a recent video that I was requested to elaborate on, the Jedi Trials. The Jedi Trials, also known as the Trials of Knighthood, Jedi Rituals, or Jedi Ceremonies, were challenges that Jedi Padawans were given as requirements to become Jedi Knights. Interestingly, these trials were occasionally retaken by Knights to earn Master status. Administered by the Jedi High Council, there were 5 tests: skill, courage, spirit, flesh, and insight. Each trial represented an aspect of the ideal Jedi. The trial of skill was one of the oldest in the Order. While the focus was on displays of lightsaber technique, an important element was the subject's ability to avoid distractions through self-discipline. Originally, the trial of skill was a display of acrobatic and force feats, such as levitating objects in the middle of a storm, but over time it was revised into a 3-part exam of physical, mental, and combat challenges. The physical challenges included tests of climbing, endurance, escape from tight situations, and leaping, a focus on displays of the physical body. The mental challenges tested skill in levitation, mental endurance, performance under duress, and inner reflection. Finally, the combat challenge, as you'd expect from the name, required the student to face an adversary of some kind. Their opponent could be of any species or allegiance, and could be either a living, flesh and blood foe, or a simulacra created from data in the Jedi archives. The combat challenge focused on conflict, dueling, and keeping a calm mind, and it pitted Padawans against droids, other students, the Jedi Battlemaster, or even the Jedi Grandmaster, and required the Padawan not necessarily to defeat their foe, but simply to endure all of the attacks. Other students might be required to face multiple opponents, some with lightsabers, some manipulating perception with the Force or altering the environment in the chamber. Finally, the Council could use their simulacrum program to send out any Sith Lord in their records against a Padawan. One of the most recognizable trials of skill was Anakin Skywalker's defeat of the Sith assassin Asajj Ventress on Yavin 4, shown in great detail in the 2003 Clone Wars miniseries by Genndy Tartakovsky. This trial of skill pushed Anakin to his limits, with a battle starting on the forest floor and progressing to one of the ancient temples, large stone ziggurats built by the ancient warrior race, the Massassi. The fight culminated at the peak of the Great Temple, with Ventress disarming Anakin and Anakin taking one of Ventress's sabers for himself to fight her, ultimately sending her falling into a dark abyss after cracking the stone under her. The Jedi Council decided that this brutal ordeal of fighting a Sith was sufficient to satisfy Anakin's trial of skill. The second trial was the trial of courage. Courage was a core quality in a Jedi, so the trial was a showcase of one of the central traits the Jedi was supposed to personify. Due to this requirement of facing the unknown, most Jedi did not discuss what their individual test consisted of. Before the test was firmly established into a singular exam, there were several qualifying events. Displaying courage on the battlefield, for example, or facing and defeating a Sith Lord qualified. During the height of the Republic and the accompanying era of peace, finding a real threat was difficult, so the Council often simulated a mission in the Trials Chamber, or could send the student out on an actual mission outside of the temple. 2 major examples of trials of courage were Obi-Wan's defeat of Maul on Naboo, and Anakin's bravery throughout the Clone Wars. The trial of spirit was one that forced the student into introspection. They had to look within themselves, face who they were, and make a potential Jedi Knight face quite possibly the most dangerous thing to any Jedi, their own inner darkness. This test was often referred to as facing the mirror, and many apprentices who carried out this trial saw things that they didn't like within themselves. The Padawan was required to sit and enter a deep meditative trance to confront their darkness. Because this was such a personal trial, the Jedi Council left it open to interpretation. Prior to entering the trance, the Padawan was required to write out what would transpire on this journey of self-reflection, and a Jedi Master was always present to help guide the student back once they entered the darkest places in their thoughts. While other trials could go wrong and lead to death, the worst that could happen with the trial of spirit was awakening from the meditation screaming and mentally broken, requiring time to heal the Padawan's psyche. 2 examples of Jedi trials of spirit were that of Anakin Skywalker, which, while a little unorthodox, was counted by the Council, his vision quest and heroic tribal rescue on Nelvon, and Luke Skywalker facing a vision of Vader on Dagobah. When he struck Vader down, he revealed that he was in Vader's armor. The trial of flesh was widely regarded as the most difficult given by the council. It involved the Padawan overcoming great pain, hardship, or loss. Early in the history of the trials, the test often involved bloodshed of some kind, dismemberment, or, around 12,000 years before the events of A New Hope, a ceremony called the burning, which involved bursts of energy to the skin. This torture was abandoned, but battle scars remained a mark of passage during the New Sith Wars, and it wasn't uncommon for Padawans that defeated a Sith to be considered as having passed the trial of flesh. During the Clone Wars, Anakin Skywalker lost his right arm to Count Dooku, and while this was a direct result of Anakin's impatience and overconfidence, Obi-Wan managed to convince the Council to accept this as Anakin's trial of flesh. During the reign of the Empire, Luke Skywalker passed a trial of flesh when he lost his right hand to Darth Vader. The Trial of Insight was the final test for knighthood, and it focused on making the Jedi see through the Force. The creators of the Trial of Insight felt that even a Jedi that could face down a Sith might be fooled and even killed by common thieves. The ability for a Jedi to see through illusions, sense deception, feel a person's true nature, and unravel lies were essential to the success of a Jedi in the field. The trial consisted of sensory and mental puzzles, solving difficult riddles, decoding broken text in scattered files, or even finding a single grain of sand amongst a field of stones. Finally, I'd like to talk about the Almas Academy trials. The Jedi Academy on Almas followed a different procedure. Instead of all 5 trials, a series of 3 tests was developed, and some knights regarded these as easier or harder than the core Jedi trials. The first Almas Council test was on the student's knowledge and ability to apply the Jedi Code, discussed in an earlier video linked below. The second trial was for the student to meditate in the Academy's basement for 5 days. If they completed their meditation successfully, they were allowed to take the final test, which was sort of an amalgamation of the primary Jedi trials. The student was brought into the vast deserts of Almas and fought their fears through combat, force demonstrations, and any other skill they possessed. Lastly, while not part of the Jedi trials themselves, I wanted to talk about the knighting ceremony.
And now we must leave our roles as master and student. It is time we became brothers. Master?
The knighting ceremony was an ancient ritual and was overseen by members of the Jedi High Council and led by the Jedi Grand Master. The Padawan was surrounded by the Council in total darkness. Then they all ignited their lightsabers as one, and the Padawan knelt. The Grand Master spoke the words, then sliced off the Padawan's braid, signifying that their time as an apprentice was over.
Step forward, Padawan. Anakin Skywalker, by the right of the Council, by the will of the Force, dub thee I do, Jedi, Knight of the Republic.
Of course, if there was no way to return to the temple for a long time, such as during war, and a Jedi felt that their Padawan was ready to become a knight, a field promotion was occasionally permitted. Thanks for watching! I made this video after a few people said they wanted to hear more about the Jedi Trials in my video on supplementary lightsaber forms, linked in description below. If you've got an idea for a topic you'd like me to cover, leave a comment on any of my videos or send a message to the official Fan-Fueled Fiction email on screen now. If you enjoyed this, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing. It takes 2 seconds for you and really helps the channel out. See you in the next one.